Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to give it just a minute so that everyone can filter in and get comfortable, but we'll get started with the presentation in just a moment. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Claire Burke, and I'm a Career Services Associate with Employment Boost. Today, we are going to be going over some tips and tricks on how to job search successfully in 2021. So as you all know, having the year that we've had, it is more important now than ever to put a strategy in place for your job search to make sure that you stand out in a highly saturated candidate pool. So today, we'll be going over some strategies to make your resume stand out from the pack and to make your professional brand established across various platforms and digital brands. So before we get started today, I'd like to take a little bit of time to go over who we are and what we do. So Employment Boost is an expert full-service outplacement career coaching and resume writing firm. We're headquartered in Troy, Michigan, with offices across the US in locations like Chicago, Cleveland, Denver, and New York City. And our firm offers both B2B and B2C services that are built off of more than a decade of industry-leading career services expertise. Employment Boost is recognized as the nation's top professional and executive resume writing service, and we have 5-star ratings across various platforms, including Google, Facebook, Yelp, and SHRM. So please do feel free to check out our website. We'll be talking a little bit more about what we do later as well. And in the meantime, feel free to leave any questions or comments in the live chat. We'll be going over some questions once we wrap up here today at the end of this presentation, but we're happy to answer questions throughout. And let me know if there are any topics that you'd like to learn more about or discuss in more detail. So as Employment Boost, we are a subsidiary of Heavy Hitter Holdings. And as you can see here, there are quite a few brands under that umbrella, many of which are executive search and recruiting firms. For more than 15 years, Heavy Hitter Holdings brands have been delivering high-quality services across multiple markets internationally. So leveraging those resources that we have to really make sure that we're staying on top of all trends in the hiring world. And by leveraging those connections to the research and recruiting teams, which I'll talk about more in just a second, we're really able to get those cutting-edge insights into the job market and into what hiring professionals are looking for. Which brings us to the team. Our team at Employment Boost is comprised of certified professional resume writers, such as myself, career coaches, executive recruiters, and market researchers. So again, it is a team effort, all working together to make sure that our insights are top-notch and that we're working together to put our clients in the best possible position for their own job searches. So now that we've gone over our team and who we are, let's talk about our position today. As of November, nearly 11 million individuals in the US are actively in a job search. They are currently seeking employment. And with that in mind, it is crucial that you develop a strategy for your job search so that you stand out in that highly competitive and saturated markets of candidates. And doing so is multifaceted. There are a couple of different approaches that you will learn how to weave together to support that goal of standing out. And in doing so, it is incredibly important to identify your own needs and goals and to recognize how those goals and needs tie into the various components, both human and machine, that make up the modern job search. So we'll be talking more about needs, goals, and how to identify and leverage those. And we'll also be talking about building your resume. So by building your resume with its target audience in mind, leveraging key terms and job requirements, and establishing an online presence and professional network, you will be able to optimize your chances of success in today's market. And those are going to be topics that we'll be discussing again in detail. And please do feel free to let me know if you have any questions throughout. And again, later on, we will take some time to go over any other thoughts or questions that you may have. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. We're going to start out with an introduction to the job search, going over needs, wants, and deal breakers, and an activity that you can do to gain more insights into your own goals and professional boundaries when it comes to the job search. From there, we'll be discussing the resume itself, building the resume with the building blocks that you'll identify in job descriptions and key terms. So we'll be discussing the basics of the Resume 101, what it does, how it's used. Then we'll be going on to discuss the audience of the resume, the Applicant Tracking System, which I know many people have questions about that. We'll be discussing the ATS and what exactly it does. And then we'll be moving on into key terms and how to best use them. Finally, we'll go over networking and establishing your presence online. And then again, wrapping up with any questions that you may have. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started with an introduction to the job search and an activity surrounding your needs, wants, and deal breakers when it comes to the roles that you are targeting and the roles that you are applying to. So in order to do so, an activity is actually one of the best ways to identify these priorities. So it's something that we would strongly recommend that you consider is taking a list of these needs, these wants, and deal breakers, even just jotting it down on a piece of paper or thinking about it. What are your needs and your wants for a job search? What do you need in a role? What is something that you can absolutely not take in a role? By knowing these things and doing this introspection, you can set aside those other, nearly 11 million candidates that are currently searching for jobs, and you can focus on yourself. At the end of the day, your job search is for you, and so it's really important to understand how you stand in that search by identifying, again, these needs, wants, and deal breakers for a role. And these will be different for every single person. Not everybody is going to have the same needs. Some people might have needs that other people may have never even considered, right? This is very independent. This is very personal. So again, I urge you to take the time to think about what these needs, wants, and deal breakers are. And then we'll also go over some examples of some factors that you want to consider in your job search and that are very helpful to consider. So things like location, salary, benefits, growth potential, industry, job title, travel requirements, hours worked, work from home flexibility. That's a big one right now, is thinking about what kind of company that you're looking for in terms of work from home flexibility or remote work. And then some things like culture and perks. These are all different components of a role that you will be able to weigh and value for yourself. So for example, maybe location is something that is incredibly important to you. You need to be in a certain area and you will not be considering jobs in other areas. If that's something that is important to you, make sure that you're keeping that in mind and make sure that that is informing your decisions when it comes to applying for roles. And the same goes with all of these different things. Again, everybody has their own idea of what they're looking for in their dream job and what that means, especially as pertaining to these various components. But thinking about that and thinking about some other categories of needs, wants, and deal breakers is a really important first step. Whether you are just starting the job search, whether you've been in the job search for a while, again, we really encourage you to take the time to think about these things. Not only because, again, they will help with your own professional boundaries and your own knowledge of your job search, but they can also significantly improve the efficiency manually of your job search. So as you can see at the top of the slide, we have an example of LinkedIn's filtering system with a couple of options, things like jobs, date posted, experience level, company. And if you look all the way to the right, you'll see a button that says all filter. So these are not even half of the filters that platforms like LinkedIn offers. And so by taking those needs, wants, and deal breakers into account, you can use them to filter through all of the jobs that you will be looking for. And doing that can really help minimize the white noise of irrelevant job postings. Again, if location is a need for you, if you need to be in a certain area, you shouldn't be wasting your time looking at roles that aren't in that area. And so by filtering by location or by whatever matters to you, you can cut that out Again, and then from there, using those filters to either narrow or broaden your search based on the results. So that's why it's a good idea to have those wants in mind as well. The things that you're willing to give up but would be nice, you can use those as well to, again, broaden and narrow the scope of your search using these filters. So saving you time in your own job search, but also increasing your odds of finding a role that aligns with your goals and your needs. We want to make sure that you're finding a role, but also finding a role that you will be happy in and that fits what you are looking for. So the benefits to this are twofold. So now that we've laid the framework and gone over some preliminary steps that you can take to prepare your strategy for your job search, let's talk about the resume itself and building out the resume. So here we'll go over Resume 101 best practices and how to optimize your resume for these roles that you've found by using your needs, wants, and deal breakers to narrow down the pool of open positions. So with that in mind, let's go over the purpose of a resume. The purpose of a resume is to communicate your strongest skills and accomplishments to illustrate how you will be an asset to the company that you are applying to. Essentially, it is a piece of marketing material and you are the product, right? The resume is showing your skills, your strengths, and accomplishments, the things that you bring to the table that can add value to a company. The resume does not need to be all encompassing. As a matter of fact, the resume should be at most 2 pages for a standard US resume. CVs and federal resumes differ, but more often than not, the traditional standard resume that you will be using should not exceed 2 pages and should actually be 1 page. Typically, if you have under 10 years of experience, there's some flexibility there depending on, again, your experience and how many roles that you've been in, but not exceeding 2 pages. And with that in mind, it's important that you're using that space wisely to showcase the most persuasive and informative content that will later win you an interview. The resume should be your ticket to the interview. So again, by showing what you can do, by getting the hiring manager interested in you and your capabilities, you will be able to then win an interview and discuss those projects in greater detail. Not only is your resume this ticket to an interview again, it is a powerful tool in constructing your own professional brand and establishing yourself as a figure and a leader in your field. The writing and formatting decisions that you make will, again, not only show the hiring manager why you're qualified for a role, but it will also show them about who you are as a professional, the skills that you have, and again, how you can add value to their organization. So now that we've discussed the purpose of a resume and what it's for, let's talk about the resume's audience, just as important. In order to understand how to most effectively use a resume, create a resume, and distribute it, you have to understand your audience. In this case, your audience is supervisors, HR managers, talent acquisition specialists or recruiters, and the applicant tracking system. And as you can see, one of these things is not like the other. Supervisors, HR managers, talent acquisition specialists, these are all the human element to your job search. These are human beings that will be making hiring decisions about you. But the applicant tracking system is just as important, and it also plays an integral role in decision making for your hiring and your candidacy. So let's talk more about the applicant tracking system and how these digital components meet with the human side of the hiring process. What is an applicant tracking system? And you'll notice applicant tracking system is likely something that you've been hearing more and more about. It is something that is becoming increasingly utilized. We actually have a graph on that utilization coming up, but it is becoming it's becoming an industry best practice to use, and it is incredibly important. So what is it? The ATS is an electronic database that stores resumes. Essentially, when you submit your resume to an online job posting, it is more likely than not going to go straight to the applicant tracking system, where it will be stored. From that point, a recruiter or hiring manager will search for key terms to narrow the candidate pool down. And what the ATS does is filter through all of the hundreds or thousands of resumes that it stores and identifies the resumes that have that language, that contain that key term that the recruiter or hiring manager searched for. It doesn't just look for these terms, though. It also looks for the frequency of these terms, where they're placed on the resume, whether they're bolded or not. These factors can impact how your resume is weighed in the applicant tracking system and can impact whether or not it is viewed by a hiring professional. Words that are used more frequently are going to be weighted with more value. So let's say, for example, the search term that this person is looking for is project manager. Maybe one resume says the word project manager once. Maybe another says it 20 times. The one that says it 20 times is going to be weighed more heavily in the applicant tracking system because of that. And similarly, bolded words are going to carry more weight than those that are not. Words at the top of the resume are going to carry more keyword value than those at the bottom. So something to keep in mind. It all revolves around these key terms, how they're used, and how much they're used. The applicant tracking system also filters for things like location. So geofiltering, for example, if a company wants to hire candidates within a certain area. Education and certifications. It's always important to make sure that all of your education information is on your resume, just in case they are looking to filter by education. And also to make sure that all of your relevant certifications, licensure, and training are on the resume as well, because the applicant tracking system can be used to find candidates with those qualifications. So with all of this in mind, you're not just writing for people. It's important that your resume tells your story to the hiring manager. Yes, it's important that they can see your accomplishments, but it's also important that your resume succeeds in this digital system. Because again, if it can't succeed in the applicant tracking system, it may never get viewed by a hiring manager. Things like graphics and images are not the key to success in applicant tracking systems, even if it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Adding things like graphics and images can actually skyrocket the file size of your resume, can impede the ability in which the ATS can parse through your resume to find those keywords that are so important, and can result in your resume being thrown out or marked as spam. So it's important to make sure that you're not including any graphics, images, or anything that could disrupt the applicant tracking system parsing. And it's also important to note that the ATS, there are multiple different brands and multiple different types. There is no one overarching ATS, and every company does their hiring process a little bit differently. So I would recommend doing some research into the ATS, the different brands and the top names on the market. And again, doing a little bit more research for yourself so that you can make sure that you are doing everything in your power to succeed in these systems. And we have seen that domestic searches for the term applicant tracking system have increased significantly in the past 2 years. And that trend is expected to continue, right? That upward trend of more and more individuals looking to use applicant tracking systems with their companies. And as that trend goes, we see more and more recruiters reporting that they use an applicant tracking system. So 75% of recruiters and hiring professionals have reported that they do utilize an applicant tracking system. With that in mind, it is all but guaranteed that your resume will encounter an ATS at some point during your job search, right? If we know that 75% of recruiters and hiring professionals use this tool, then it can be assumed that your resume, if you are submitting the recommended 10 applications a day, that you will encounter one of these. So knowing, again, how to work it to your advantage is really important. And this statistic really shows that. We see that as many as 75% of qualified job applicants are actually rejected by the ATS for reasons that seem or should be inconsequential, things like formatting or maybe the lack of the requisite key search terms. These qualified job applicants have the tools to perform in those roles, but something that is impeding them is not understanding how to navigate the ATS. And this seems like a very daunting statistic, but this is a positive, right? With this knowledge of the applicant tracking system, by understanding that there is an applicant tracking system at play and how to, again, use that to your advantage, you will be able to set yourself up for success and avoid some of this stress of being rejected for things that, again, maybe should not play a role, things like formatting. So with the right strategy in place, you will find success, again, not only in the ATS, but also in the hands of a hiring manager. So really being able to blend the human and digital components of the job search. So now that we've talked about the applicant tracking system and key terms and just how important they are, let's talk about key terms and what they are. Key terms, or the phrase key term or buzzword, is likely something that you've heard a lot surrounding the job search and surrounding hiring. And that's because keywords are incredibly important, but they're often misunderstood. So let's talk about what keywords are exactly. A keyword or a key term is a phrase or business term that will likely be searched in the applicant tracking system to narrow down the candidate pool. So like we mentioned, recruiters use the applicant tracking system almost like a searching device, right? They input a search term and the applicant tracking system filters and pulls up results. Because of this human element of the recruiter being the one searching this term, we can't accurately predict, exactly what they're going to be looking for. We don't know exactly what is going through their mind that day. We don't know exactly what they're planning on typing, right? But we can identify trends and we can fairly accurately kind of forecast and project what they will be looking for. And we'll talk in a lot more detail about how to do that exactly, but just important to note that a key term is what will likely be searched in the ATS to narrow down the candidate pool. There is no overarching list of key terms. There's no set database full of these key terms that hiring professionals are looking for. They are dependent on each role. They are dependent on the person and the company. Something important to note. When talking about key terms, it can be helpful to think of them as being two-tiered. So there's one tier of key terms that's more broad, more general, key to the industry, role, and expected qualifications for a job title. So these are the key terms that you will see in multiple job descriptions. And again, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about how to find these, but these are the trends in language, the trends in expectation, the common qualifications, certifications, etc. that is expected of a person in a certain role. That is the first tier of key terms. The second tier of key terms is key to the specific individual position that you are applying for. And those are just as important. It is essential that you include these terms that are both key to the industry and key to every single position that you apply to on the resume. And this means that you will make adjustments to the resume every time you submit it. Again, we'll discuss that a little bit more later on. But this is the foundations of key terms. They are the words that, again, the recruiter will most likely search to narrow down the candidate pool. And please let me know if I can clarify further. Something that we'll be doing now is going through 3 job descriptions to take a more close look at these key terms and how to find them, and also how to understand them in a more macro perspective and taking a wider approach. So with that said, we'll go ahead and look at our first job description. All 3 of these job descriptions are for the same job title, account manager, in the same industry. And we'll be looking at 3, like I said, going through the key terms of each, and then taking a step back and looking at how it plays together. So how do we find these key terms? Let's take a look at this first job description. As you can see on the side, we have already pulled out a list of keywords, but I'll walk through a bullet or two just to see where this is coming from, just to walk you through how to find these key terms and how to flag what could potentially be a key term. So we'll start with the first bullet. Proactively assess, clarify, and validate customer needs on an ongoing basis. It's the first bullet. It's a key responsibility for the role. It is clearly important. And you see that term, customer needs. When you see that, that's usually a good indication that that might be a key term. So in reading that bullet, pulling that apart, and writing that down, you can be confident that that is something to keep in mind, something that they might be searching for on the resume. So then moving on into that second bullet, we see owned overall client satisfaction and proactively identify relationship building opportunities. Again, we see these key terms like client satisfaction, relationship building. These are things that are clearly very important to the role. They've listed them in the first 2 bullets of the job responsibilities. So be sure to keep those in mind, jot those down, and include those in a potential list of key terms or keywords. So I won't read through the rest of all of these bullets. We'll go ahead and move on to the second job description, but feel free to take a look. I'll give you just a moment to skim this and let me know if you have any questions about this first job description. All right. So moving on to the second job description, similarly, I'll read the first bullet or two and we'll go through this. But again, as you can see, we've already listed out a few of these keywords that we've identified by going through the whole job description. So feel free to take some time and read through the entire thing as well, just to get a little bit more comfortable with these job descriptions. And I also want to note, all three of these job descriptions that we have found are set up in a very similar manner with responsibilities on top and requirements or qualifications on the bottom. This is a very common structure that you'll see for job descriptions in your job search when you are looking for new open roles. It's not always the way it's formatted though. So just something to keep in mind depending on a company's hiring structure. And how robust their job descriptions are. They might look a little bit different. Don't be thrown off if you see one that looks different from this or a little bit messier than this. You can still take this approach, just again, take the time to read line by line. So with this example, we see the first line of under responsibilities being serve as the lead point of contact for all customer account management matters. So we see right off the bat, customer account management. This is what this job is about. And then moving on to the second bullet. Build and maintain strong, long-lasting client relationships. Another bullet about relationships. So you'll notice some overlap already, even just from the first job description that we looked at. And again, these are from two totally different companies. Same industry, same job title, but you'll start to notice what the priorities and what qualifications they're looking for on a more general, overarching manner. So look through that. Pull out those keywords. Again, we've listed out some here, so feel free to take a look at those. And then we'll move on to our third job description and go through a couple of bullets of that. And then finally, take a look back and look at it all together and how we can use these insights, how we can look at these job descriptions specifically to understand more on a broader level how the hiring process works and how the job search works. So finally, with our third job description, we have our responsibilities: generate new business revenue from the customer base, develop a trusted advisor relationships with key accounts, customer stakeholders, and executive sponsors. So another point here with relationship building. And you'll see again, the key terms that we have pulled out just initially going through this job description and seeing what they are looking for. This is a sample population with 3 job descriptions, right? In your own job search, you will be looking at far more than 3 jobs. Chances are you will be looking at dozens, if not hundreds of jobs to go through and make sure, if they're a good fit for you. So the more jobs that you look at, the more that you are able to take these individual job descriptions or job postings, look at them and compile lists of keywords, the greater idea that you'll have about general trends in language and requirements for the roles that you are pursuing. And again, these are going to differ, and what matters the most is that your resume matches up with each specific job that you apply to. But you can get a good head start. You can build the foundation of your resume with key terms that you can more likely than not assume are going to be searched by a hiring manager. And the more that you see shared, the more of an idea, again, broader scale, you can build your resume out of. So here we have lists of key terms that were shared by 2 of the 3 roles that we just looked at. So things like listening, forecasting, customer needs, executive communications. And then we have things that are shared between all 3 roles, things like account management, communication skills, presentation skills, relationship building. These lists will grow bigger and bigger, again, with the more jobs that you look at. And the longer these lists get, the more of an idea that you'll have on what to showcase and what to highlight. So once you've established the foundation of your resume, using these insights into trends in language and key terms that you found by doing research, by looking through all of these job descriptions and creating lists of the key terms that you've found, you should be modifying your resume to include the role-specific buzzwords in each job description. Like I said, every single time that you apply to a posting, it is crucial that you make sure that it contains the keywords listed in that specific job description. And we know that the most successful candidates make adjustments to their resumes each and every time that they apply for a new posting. Each and every time you submit your resume, every time you hit that submit button, make sure that the resume features the language and qualifications that posting specifically is looking for. Candidates who submit between 8 and 10 carefully tailored resumes a day will generate significantly more results than those who submit the same resume to more than 50 postings a day. Quality is key here. And so again, an example of how by working smarter and not harder, you're able to cut out some of that time that you would have spent sending out fruitless resumes, 50 a day. Again, taking that time to carefully tailor the document will significantly improve your chances of success. So make sure that you are taking those key terms into account, that you are looking at the key terms for each role, and that you are incorporating them. It is incredibly important to do so. So now that we've discussed key terms, the resume, and building your resume, let's talk about professional branding and establishing an online presence. We've talked a little bit about your professional brand and how you can use your resume to create your professional brand and define who you are as, again, a leader or figure in your field. Now you can take that online. Establishing a digital presence is key. Building that network online and establishing yourself, again, as a professional in your field is going to increase your success in the job search. It's going to make you a more valuable candidate, and it will improve your own professional knowledge. So let's talk about networking and what's in a network. So your online network on LinkedIn will likely comprise of recruiters, hiring managers, current and former colleagues, and industry professionals. These are the people, more likely than not, that will be in your network of connections. And these are some very influential people. We know that recruiters and hiring managers are clearly making decisions when it comes to hiring. Having recruiters and hiring professionals in your network can be a great asset, and being able to reach out to them about new roles can be incredibly helpful. And similarly, having current and former colleagues and industry professionals, building those relationships and maintaining those relationships in your area are going to be very helpful to you. Again, not just in your job search, but overall in your career. Having this network is also really important for referrals and networking when it comes to finding a job. We know that up to 85% of open jobs are filled through networking. And as of 2017, 3.07% of new applicants for a position had been referred to the role, while referrals represented 15.83% of new hires. So we see that referrals find success and that referrals are more likely to be hired in a role. We also know that new hires sourced through referral programs are more than 3 times more likely than non-referred applicants to stay in a role for 3 years or longer. So being referred to a role also correlates with longer tenure in a company, potentially more growth potential, right? So all of these factors come into play. And as you can see, being referred to a role can be a really great way to get your foot in the door and find that job. And to increase your chances of getting a referral, you can, again, leverage your network. So let's talk about some LinkedIn do's and don'ts so that you can make sure that you are establishing the most polished professional presence online as possible, while, again, increasing your chances of being referred to a role or finding a role through LinkedIn. So let's start with our first LinkedIn do. Do update your profile to align with the experience listed on your resume. We want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile reflects your resume exactly, right? It doesn't need to have all of the exact content, and I'll talk about that a little bit more with the don't that pertains to this, but you want to make sure that your education, your job history, all of your certifications, and all of your qualifications align between the LinkedIn page and the resume. Make sure that your LinkedIn is up to date with your current role, and make sure that everything that's on your resume, again, is reflected. We don't want to raise any red flags. If there are major discrepancies between your resume and your LinkedIn, this could, again, raise a red flag in the eye of a recruiter or a hiring manager. It might make them question you, and again, your ability to keep things up to date online. So do update your profile. Do include content under your roles explaining what you've done and some of those accomplishments, but don't include too many quantifiable metrics about your job performance. So make sure, again, that you're listing out what you've done, your great accomplishments, but try to stay away from including dollar amounts or sales numbers, any quantifiable metrics that you want to save for the resume itself. So try to keep those off of LinkedIn, keep LinkedIn a little bit more vague than the resume is. You also want to make sure that you're joining professional groups relating to your industry and job function. This can be a great way to, again, increase your chances of being referred to a role, but also to build out your professional network and to get more insights into what is cutting edge in your industry. So learning new developments, being able to brainstorm and collaborate with people in your industry and with your job function, that can be a great tool. Do not participate in debates or arguments in the comments section. LinkedIn is a social media platform, yes, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are being as professional as possible, especially considering that LinkedIn can act as an extension of your resume in some ways. We know that recruiters source candidates on LinkedIn. This could be their first introduction to you as a candidate, so make sure that that first impression is perfect. Make sure that you are not engaging in debates. Again, we don't want to raise any questions about professionalism, and we don't want to incur any bias. Another LinkedIn do is giving and asking for recommendations. Talk to your colleagues, give them recommendations on their page. Talk about how they are skilled and how they would make a great asset to the companies that they are looking to work for. And ask them to leave you a recommendation as well. This can increase the visibility of your page. It can show hiring professionals more about your personal skills, your leadership, and what it's like to work with you. And again, just bolsters everyone's experience. So do give and ask for recommendations. We don't recommend posting sensitive information about your job search if you are currently employed. If you are currently employed, discretion is key. So try to stay away from advertising your job search. You can also go into the privacy and security settings to make sure that those are set up how you want. I'll discuss those in just a moment. But if you are trying to maintain a discreet search, be discreet on LinkedIn as well. Our final do engage with posts on your dashboard. Again, this is a good way to increase visibility, have conversations in your field, in your industry, react to things, support your connections, and they will support you. And then final don't post or like not safe for work or inappropriate content. Goes without saying and kind of ties into the don't partake in debates, but this is a professional platform. This could potentially be your first introduction to a company that you want to work for. So make sure that it is professional, polished, and that it is entirely safe for work. So some final tips on increasing your online visibility, getting more page views, and in turn, increasing your chances of being reached out to by a recruiter to fill a role. We recommend adding up to 50 skills to your profile and focus on the ones that are most applicable to the specific type of roles that you're targeting. And here is a great opportunity to use all of those various keyword lists that you had built out when applying and searching for jobs. Take those keywords, look at them, and add them as skills, especially if they are very common terms, very common trends in language that you see hiring professionals looking for. You can use those to add to your skills. You should also upload a current professional headshot to increase your profile views. And update your privacy and visibility settings to align with your desired level of discretion. So again, there are a lot of really great security options and visibility options on LinkedIn. They're really good at making sure that you can be as discreet or as open about your search as possible. So I encourage you to check those out and look at the settings. You can either make yourself even more visible than you already are or less, just depending on your goals. And you can also set it so that you are specifically only visible to recruiters. Again, going on the line of discretion. So keep that in mind, check that out. And then finally, connect with recruiters and hiring professionals at the organizations that you're interested in joining. This can be another great way to get your foot in the door. After you apply to a role, look if you can see the recruiter or hiring manager overseeing the hiring for that role. Oftentimes, it'll have their name. If not, then just connect with recruiters again and hiring professionals at that company. Feel free to send them a message explaining your interest in the role, explaining that you have just applied and that you are eager to hear from them. Create those relationships with people at these companies, build your network, and that again can increase your chances of being referred and increase your chances of receiving an offer. So those are some tips and tricks for increasing online visibility on platforms such as LinkedIn. All right. Well, that is all that I have for you today. Thank you all again for joining me. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll take some time to answer any questions. So please feel free to send any questions in the live chat, and I will be happy to answer them. And also feel free to check out our website at employmentboost.com if you have any more questions about our services, who we are, resume writing, or career coaching. Thank you for attending. It's been great. Again, please feel free to reach out in the future if you do have any questions, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well if you'd like to ask anything, or if you'd like a little bit more time to have a discussion. Claire Burke on LinkedIn, and feel free to follow us at Employment Boost on LinkedIn as well. All right. Well, we will be wrapping up today, but again, thank you all so much for taking the time to join me. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we do also offer a free resume review service on our website as well. So if you want to submit your resume and get feedback from our team, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks.